Welcome to the special edition of the DPW podcast, live here in Brooklyn, where procurement, technology, and innovation converge. I'm your host, Bernhard, and I'm exploring what it means for procurement leaders to be ready for the future with AI. Jeanne, I'm delighted to meet you. We had a wonderful pre-call, and given my work at the interface of procurement, leadership, and transformation, I'm really excited meeting you here today. And I'm sure there's a wide range of topics, but why don't we start with your journey? How did you end up becoming a, thought leader, book author? You get regularly published in Forbes, and everyone wants to know, what does it mean to be a leader in the world of AI? But maybe start with, what's your journey to get to?
Oh, well, thank you. I'm excited to be here. And it's a first for procurement. And my journey started writing a book, the first book on the topic of corporate universities. So this is the internal corporate training departments that have morphed and become much more strategic to show their value to an organization. In fact, I at one point predicted there was going to be more corporate universities than accredited institutions of higher education in the United States. And I've come very close. They're about neck and neck, about 4,000 each. So I've written 4 books, actually, started businesses. One was corpu.com, sold that, went to work for Accenture and helped organizations outsource various parts of their corporate university to Accenture, and then formed the Future Workplace, which was an HR peer network convening heads of corporate learning and talent management 4 times a year with having discussions on what the future of work means to them in their role and in their organization. So I've just sold that business and now doing independent consulting with a wide range of organizations.
Amazing. And I'm sure how that journey formed your views. In fact, having successfully founded a business, procurement leaders, like any other function, are, leaders of people. But I think for the first time, we're dealing with a truly hybrid workforce. So what does it mean to lead, and what does it mean to have a hybrid workforce?
Yeah, well, since the pandemic, we all work in a hybrid workplace, and that's what we've been talking about most. The ability and the flexibility to work where and when you want. But now I see emerging a hybrid workforce, which is the combination of humans and AI agents working side by side. I believe it's a lot more than a business trend. It's really a strategy that organizations must adopt, because this is going to be how humans are going to work. They're going to be their need to partner and collaborate, so that AI is no longer a tool. It really becomes your new teammate.
Wow, that is a shift in perspective. So, yeah, when you said side by side, I thought, what did that mean? You actually described it like a team mate. Bring that to life.
Yeah. So I think this requires workers to see themselves integrating AI into their entire workflow. So they would that should be their first point of action, right? How can my AI agent help me solve a business problem or create a first draft for a document, whatever the assignment or the initiative happens to be. And this is, if you look at the research for knowledge workers, they're often about 60% of their time is spent with repetitive in repetitive assignments that clearly can be automated, right? So there's huge gains for productivity. But I see another big gain as humans work side by side and delegate some of their job to an AI agent. I see an impact on their overall well being. And we did some research recently, a couple months ago, interviewing in an online survey 600 HR leaders and workers. And we asked them how much time are they saving each day working side by side with an AI agent. And it's about 1 to 2 hours overall on average. There are power users that say they're saving 4 hours a day. That's a lot. But then we asked a follow up question: what are you doing with the time
Yes.
saved? And of course, they say, it's increased my productivity. It's allowed me to be more strategic and work on things that impact the organization's revenue and margin. But what was really interesting was individuals that said it allowed me to form more human connections, spend more time with other coworkers, and spend more time with my friends and family. So this, when you think about, the work overload that all of us are feeling, if we have a couple of hours to really connect with each other, it could have an enormous impact in our overall well-being.
Wow. Now you make this sound really positive and exciting, and yet a lot of people are fearful.
Yes.
And in fact, I did a poll yesterday where I was hosting a panel and asked, how prepared do you feel? 1 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Almost everyone was a 1 out of 10. So what does it actually mean for all of us to acquire the skills and the mindset to cope?
With increased usage of these AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude, we are also seeing increased anxiety. Increased usage leads to increased anxiety. Why? For a number of reasons. Number one, there's obviously the fear of, am I going to be automated out of a job? But I think the more important fear is, my job is going to really change. Am I up to it? Do I want my new job? Am I trained enough to excel in my new job? So there's that. I think there's a fear of, I may mess up. I'm not sure I know the policies and guidelines my organization has set for me in using AI at work. And then there's a really interesting fear, especially with younger workers. And that fear is, if I don't use AI, if I'm not as proficient as I should be using AI, what's going to be the impact on my career, on my performance reviews, and my overall ability to be promotable in my organization? So it's a challenge for leaders.
It's a challenge for leaders, and it's a challenge for those who want to be leaders. And they all seem to hope for the best, and yet they're fearful. What advice do you give to get ready? Is it about, reading about it, a seminar, applying it? What strategies would you recommend?
Well, certainly there are different strategies for leaders and workers. For leaders, first and foremost, I think they have to understand the anxiety as well as the benefits that they're purporting in terms of productivity and gains in innovation or creativity. They have to understand it from the point of view of the worker. They are anxious that this is something new that they have to master in order to be employable. So number one, leaders have to be intentional on how they describe this pace of change that we're all feeling. I think secondly, leaders have to create a culture of transparency so that they share how they're using it and how it's impacting their job in town halls and product reviews. I mean, they have to really, live in the shoes of the worker.
Interesting. What you're highlighting here, Jeanne, is that whilst we're thinking of that tech geek who's comfortable leading and role modeling, yet you mentioned empathy. understanding how people are fearful, um, and also be probably open to what's describing their own fears. So, what would you recommend to a leader to truly be effective? Because obviously, fear is not the right thing to start the journey with. That'd be very uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah. Well, not only that, it adds greater stress, and that's going to impact, overall engagement and job satisfaction. So there's empathy that leaders must exhibit to the workforce, and there's some business reasons why they have to, right? I think that leaders have to be very adaptable and agile, and they're going to be thrown into all sorts of new challenges that they've never faced before. For example, should AI agents be on the company org chart? There's some companies that have 5,000 employees, may have up to 3,000 AI agents. How does that? I was reading another article recently where someone was having a performance review and said, well, what if a response from a worker is, well, actually, it's not me that's delivering this below average performance. It's my AI agent.
Edible. I just imagine what it would be like. So it could be an excuse. At the same time, you know, you have this coworker who might have his, her
Right.
own interests.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's going to be a wild ride for leaders. They're going to be challenged with many new things for the very first time.
Right.
And so empathy, agility, adaptability, and importantly, bringing down the temperature,
Yes.
right? Workers are feeling stressed and anxious and concerned and worried
Right.
that this is something that they have to master. A number of AI first tech companies are starting to say it's not only a suggestion or an encouragement that you use and integrate AI into your workflow, it's an expectation. It will impact hiring and performance reviews.
Right.
So some of these companies are increasing the temperature around this topic, and rightfully so. It's tough for workers across the generations. It's not just older workers. I think younger workers, one of the interesting findings in our research was younger workers are the most concerned for their long-term career prospects. What's the workplace going to be like 20 years from now, not just a few years from now, if you're 25, right?
And who knows?
Yeah.
And you mentioned age, and I'm just wondering, how does this impact on expectation, how long people will have to work? Because it's a leveler, right? And experience seems to be less relevant now. It's about learning. So how do they kind of focus, people's mind when they are orchestrating their career?
Well, I think when people are younger people orchestrating their career, I think they have to recognize that the line between learning and working has disappeared. Learning is working and working is learning. So you're going to buy into the fact that, whatever degree you've finished, whatever skills you learned are almost immediately obsolete.
Right.
So we're talking about being proficient in AI right now in 2025. Who knows what we're going to be talking about in 2030?
Fascinating. So learning and work, as you say, become literally one thing. What are the strategies to learn better? Have we actually learned to learn?
Well, we've been talking about being a continuous learner for a really long time. In fact, in my work, I usually work with heads of HR and chief learning officers, and this has been an aspiration for decades.
Yes.
We want to inculcate this continuous learning. I think the moment is here. The moment is now. If you're not a continuous learner, you're not going to be employable. And that's something we all have to grapple with, not just younger workers, but all of us, including our leaders and our CEOs. And that's why developing this culture of transparency is so important. The CEO, a business leader or a team leader really needs to show how their job has changed and how they're navigating the new set of expectations.
It's fascinating because what you just triggered was a thought. So if you lose your job in today's world, it could be an opportunity to actually invest into learning about these new technologies when a lot of people are so busy, don't have time to learn, they do their old job.
Yeah.
And I think there's actually a real opportunity to prepare for jobs that haven't even existed, and we don't even know which new roles happen, right? Do you see it as an opportunity?
I definitely see it as an opportunity, and everyone should try to acquire as many new certifications as they possibly can. And there's many ways to do that, and they don't cost money. You could audit courses on Coursera, for example. You don't have, or the fee is very modest. But, in this skills first hiring mode we're living in, employers really are going to start taking note of how many skills and competencies can you prove as you're interviewing for new roles, either in your company or in an entirely new company.
That is fascinating. We will have to wrap this up quite soon, and I just would love to get your view of, what do people need to do as they hire and build that workforce? What are they looking out for? Because hiring skills is one thing, but it's also hiring a mindset. So what would be your advice to the CPO of the future, building this hybrid workforce? This is how you need to change the way you hire and develop talent.
For the CPO, as for any other C-level executive, CHRO, or chief learning officer, they will be hiring for capabilities, for mindset, for this thirst for learning. And as a potential new hire, your job is to prove it, right? That you're continuously learning and adding new credentials to your portfolio. For reskilling, I think the job of a CPO, a chief procurement officer, is really going to be around working with leaner teams and investing in upskilling and reskilling these teams, not just on AI proficiency, but on uniquely human skills like collaboration and critical thinking.
Wow, my mind is literally exploding. We explored such a wide range of what it actually means to lead, to have a hybrid colleague who I might be able to blame for my poor performance, but who knows what he will say about me. We heard that it might help us to increase our well-being, and yet will be full of fear. I think you highlighted a growth mindset is key. Lifelong learning becomes the mission. And I don't know if you agree, but I heard something that makes me think we're actually moving from specialism to being inquisitive generalists with high agency for the future. And that sounds exciting and is an opportunity for everyone. Jeanne, thank you so much for this really super interesting exchange, and I hope we can continue the dialogue sometime.
So do I. Thank you very much, Bernhard.